The run-up to launch was admittedly not the smoothest for Assassin's Creed Shadows, with multiple delays and cultural faux pas threatening to tarnish the game's reputation before anyone had wielded a hidden blade. Thanks to Ubisoft then for providing a copy for me to find out what is actually in store. A setting in feudal Japan has been the most requested for Ubisoft's era-hopping series for some time, and although a recent trend in popularity may make it feel like we've been here before, Shadows does things a little differently. That's not least thanks to the dual protagonist approach that has you play as both Naoe, an agile shinobi, and Yasuke, a powerful samurai. Much more than a cosmetic choice, the two have differing backgrounds and separate skill sets that emphasize the RPG elements and the extremes of stealth or direct combat. There are also two sides of the same story, one that affords you some choices along the way, or that can be played as intended with the new canon mode. Settlement building and ally recruitment fill out the roster, and hunting is replaced with observing and sketching animals for a better sense of harmony in the world.
You are beautiful.
The game feels fresh then, and without any cross-gen compromises, the visuals are suitably upgraded too. Even the photo mode has finally been given a long overdue refresh to take advantage. Or has it? Jumping in with a combined click of L3 and R3 brings up what, on first sight at least, appears to be a completely new photo mode. The first one for the series since 2017's Assassin's Creed Origins, but many of the main features are more rearranged than replaced. Gone are the separate composition and edit modes in favour of a much more cohesive tabbed UI, with camera movement being available all the time. This is arguably where the majority of the improvements have been made, as the new layout replaces the previously muddled control set with a much more intuitive use of the analog sticks and triggers to move and aim the camera. There's a decent range of 15 meters too, plus or minus 90 degrees of roll for portrait orientations, and a strong zoom range for wide angle or telephoto shots. You should have no trouble finding the right composition then. Well, that is despite the best efforts of the on-screen UI to really get in the way. It can be hidden with a press of triangle, but it comes back immediately upon any input, including a nudge of the camera itself. That means that you've never got an unobstructed view of the frame while composing a shot, and there's quite a lot of stuff on screen. The menu itself sits in a big black box. A control legend lines the bottom of the screen. Apart from the take shot and preview, amusingly, they get their own black box right in the middle. Then there's the new descriptive info banner, and don't forget one of the 5 grid guides that are also always on. It might not seem that important, but honestly, it is. Composition is the most important part of any shot, and I just want to be able to see what I'm doing. And don't get me started on how slow the settings are to get from one end of the slider to another, especially when there's no way to reset them individually. Still, at least the menu will be full of shiny new features, right? Well, not exactly, no. There isn't anything groundbreaking here, and it actually loses a couple of features from Assassin's Creed Valhalla, those being the useful bloom and fog effects. Where there are positive changes are with the use of more photography relevant values for some of the camera settings that make things much less vague. That lengthy zoom is given with lens focal lengths of 12 to 135mm, so it's easy to choose the right length for a job or to find the same settings again next time. Just note that each lens seems a bit longer than its real-world counterpart. Depth of field follows a similar trend and features manual focus distance and aperture f-stop values. Smaller f numbers mean a larger simulated aperture that creates a shallower depth of field, with defocus blur on the background and the foreground. It even reacts to the focal length with shallower acceptable focus on longer lenses. Just be careful of an ugly halo that can occur around objects when the effect is too strong. There is another more important problem though, in that the manual focus steps are enormous at 1 meter each. That obviously gives you no finesse whatsoever, and means that you'll need to pick the closest meter and then fine-tune the focus using the camera dolly. Functionally, it's definitely a downgrade from the previous cursor-based setup, and sadly the autofocus doesn't help that much either. It locks onto the playable character, yes, but the focus is on the center line of the model, so that often leaves the face out of focus when using shallow depth of field. Elsewhere, things do work better, and if anything, the film grain actually works too well. The effect is extremely strong and should be used very sparingly. And the same goes for vignette. There's a sweet spot somewhere that does the job, but it can also do some pretty weird things that you may or may not find some creative use for. Most of the genuinely useful tools for altering the style of the image come on the Filters tab, and it's not merely a selection of colour filter presets, although there are a few of those too, of course. Topping the list are 5 FX filters, which are actually customized rendering modes. With interesting styles like blood red surroundings or the look of ink on parchment paper, these are a bit more unique and tend to work well with the fully scalable paint-like sticker logos. The only downside is that all of the other filter settings are disabled when using one of these, so what you see is what you get. That's thankfully not the case with the regular filters, which essentially act as presets for the other options and can be tweaked and adjusted from their starting point. Temperature, tint and saturation bring some handy colour toning control and are perfectly easy to use. Once again, the effects can be quite strong, particularly in the case of saturation, so just don't push it too far. Finally, brightness and exposure let you drastically alter the amount of light in the image. In simple terms, brightness will adjust how bright or dark the image is by shifting everything together as a whole. Exposure, meanwhile, is biased towards the brightness of the light sources and will affect the highlights more than the shadows. Using different balances of the two is a nice way to manipulate the black and white levels, and can be used to give a matte black in the shadows, for example. They also work well together with the accompanying contrast option, but sadly these tools do remain limited to using only the light that's available at the time. That's because there's no custom lights here, and perhaps more surprisingly, given that this is a feature of the game, no ability to change the time of day either. In fact, there aren't really any advanced features here at all, so for now at least, let's call this a photo mod reboot rather than an upgrade. Aside from the short prologue, Assassin's Creed Shadows will make you wait a while before seeing more of Yasuke. The opening hours are played exclusively as Naue. Eventually though, both protagonists become available and often look resplendent in their various armor sets that can be found as loot items or bought through the Helix store. The map is also pretty huge and serves as a beautiful representation of traditional Japan, with castles, towns, markets, ports, temples and shrines everywhere you go. Being set during the turbulent Sengoku period, you can also expect a lot of military presence, with battles never far away. Just as well then that both characters can be equipped with a range of interesting and artfully crafted weapons. Away from the action, Shadows is packed with beautiful landscapes and surprisingly large populations of native creatures. It's a gorgeous place to photograph, and all the more thanks to the dynamic time, weather and even seasons. They're absolutely amazing in the way they transform the landscape and the foliage, so it's a real shame that the photo mod doesn't get control of them. Still, that just means you can spend more time out there waiting for the conditions to be just right. A major update for the Assassin's Creed photo mod has been a long time coming, and it's hard not to be somewhat disappointed with a refresh that is more of a reboot than an upgrade. While the shift to more established standards is welcome, it fails to add any of the more advanced contemporary features and mainly leans on what was already there. A few irritating design characteristics and a lack of finesse in places leave this feeling like a photo mod that is still stuck in the past. Thank you so much for watching, and please do remember to subscribe to the channel for more virtual photography content.